Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the witnesses for being here today. I'm here to address a very serious issue about one of my constituents. Mr. Carson's, I sent you as well as the President and Secretary of the State a letter on June 4th requesting that the matter of Tigran Gambaryan detainment be transferred to your office. I also wrote and received a response regarding Deputy Secretary Kurt Campbell's trip to Nigeria asking whether he discussed Tigran's case with their government. Tigran is my constituent, his wife and his 2 kids, and previously he served as an IRS agent taking high-level cases before working as a compliance executive at Binance. As you know, while on travel to Nigeria, by invitation by their government, he was arrested, had his passport seized, and has received appalling treatment with his rights continually being violated. He wasn't even charged for a month. He now has malaria, should be in the hospital, not. He's been lied about. We do have people in contact with him, but absolutely appalling circumstances. An American citizen. Most recently, Tigran contracted malaria while there. Despite a court order to the contrary, he has received less than adequate treatment, and it's time for him to come home. Special Envoy Carstens, in your view, does Mr. Gambaryan meet the criteria of a U.S. citizen wrongfully detained by a foreign government pursuant to the Robert Levingston Hostage Recovery and Hostage Taking Accountability Act?
Congressman, I hope you don't mind. I'll start off, and then Assistant Secretary Bitter may want to jump in, or maybe even Raj. But I would say that these cases are, they might from the outside seem opaque, that it's hard for people to figure out where we are in the map sheet as we go through this. And a lot of that's because the cases are not static. We keep finding information out over time.
Let me interrupt because we only have so much time. I have 3 more minutes because I'll cite your own code. Mm-hmm. And that way you can tell me if it applies or not. Or I'll probably just tell you because it's pretty obvious to me. Mr. Chairman, I ask for unanimous consent to submit to the record Section 1741 of Title 22 of the United States Code, please.
Without objection.
Thank you. Let's go through Section 1741 of Title 22, which you guys are pursuant to. Answer the questions to Mr. Gambaryan's case if it falls under these 8 criteria listed. Clause 1A. Do United States officials receive or possess credible information indicating the innocence of the detained individual? Yes. Clause 5A. Is the individual being detained in violation of laws of the detained country? Yes. We know that for a fact. Clause 6A, are independent non-government organizations or journalists raised legitimate questions about the innocence of the detained individual? Yes. Clause 7A, is the individual or the United States mission in the country where the individual is being detained received credible reports that detention is a pretext for an illegitimate purpose? Yes. Clause 8A, has the individual detained in a country where the Department of State has determined in its annual human rights reports that the judicial system is not independent or impartial, is susceptible to corruption, or is incapable of rendering just verdicts? Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to insert this report, 2023 Country Reports on Human Rights Practices, Nigeria, for the record.
Without objection.
This report finds that Nigeria has arbitrary arrests or detention, serious problems with independent judiciary, and a lot more than that. That's just one more section. Clause 9A, is the individual being detained in inhumane conditions? Yes. Not only is he not receiving adequate treatment for malaria, but in prison he's being held in a place that was built to hold Boko Haram and ISIS people, terrorists basically, as basically a businessman who was coaxed there under false pretense. Clause 10A, has due process of the law been sufficiently impaired so as to render the detention arbitrary? Yes. Held for a month, passport confiscated, no charges, no medical treatment. This is a U.S. citizen. Clause 11A, is the United States diplomatic engagement likely necessary to secure the release of the detained individual? Absolutely. Absolutely, was he saying in the military. If he was your parent or your son, I would make the case this would have already been elevated. If it was somebody of interest to the president or the secretary, this would have already been elevated. He is a U.S. citizen. If I was in Rome, back in Roman times, and I was Paul, the apostle, I'd say, I am a Roman citizen, and all of a sudden it goes where? To the emperor. Because I'm a citizen. This guy deserves better. Secretary Bitter. With it being established that Mr. Gambarian meets the criteria of wrongfully detained U.S. person, according to this old code, that's 8 sections of the code. Can I ask for your avocation to elevate this to where it belongs so we can actually get something done for this poor guy who was coaxed in under false pretense to be charged illegitimately after waiting for a month? Please.
Thank you so much, Representative McCormick. And I also just want to acknowledge that the statement that you read the other day on behalf of his wife was very moving, and I appreciate you reading that into the record, and it was really very meaningful to hear. I think we're watching this case closely. We talk about this case quite frequently. And just to back up a little bit, 2 things to be aware of. We are aware of his medical condition. We've asked for humanitarian release based on his malaria. And also, just so you know, our colleagues in Nigeria have visited him, I think, at least 9 times since he was arrested just a couple of months ago. We know that there's a hearing upcoming that we will certainly be attending. So just to assure you and to assure Mrs. Gambarian as well, that this is something we are tracking really, really closely. We're watching the proceedings, and we're watching very carefully his health.
So I'm going to ask you again. Will you advocate to elevate this to Special Envoy Carstens?
Thank you again. And as the way that we work together is that we talk about these cases all of the time.
Are you advocating to elevate this, ma'am? It's a simple question.
No, I appreciate that. I understand what you're saying. And I just want to be clear that this is something—
I know you're concerned.
Mr. McCormick, your time has expired, but there will be another round coming up here that you will have an opportunity if you wish to continue your line of questioning. Chair now recognizes Ranking Member of the full committee, Ranking Member Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start by thanking our